Hello everyone. Last time we discussed the basics of post-colonialism like colonization, decolonization, and neocolonization. Today we are going to take two texts at least so that we start understanding what these writers are trying to say. This concept of colonization was propounded by the famous writers like Franz Fanon and Edward Said. Edward Said's Orientalism is kind of Bible for post-colonialism actually. But before Edward Said published Orientalism, there was another text that is named The Wretched of the Earth by Franz Fanon, at the same time Black Skins and White Skins, White Mass. Franz Fanon, we need to understand the writer first. Why? Because when someone is writing a text, so what is the background of that writer also matters. Why? Because you may be able to understand why the things are. He was actually a French West Indian psychiatrist. He was a psychiatrist, so expert at psychology and understanding how the people's mindset work. So in 1961, when he wrote The Wretched of the Earth, he actually dealt with the French colonies which were there in African countries. He was a French West Indian, I told you. And this book, The Wretched of the Earth, also is written in French language. Here, French had colonized African countries. So he had analyzed those countries and the people, the kind of culture the French was trying to impose there and what Africans were going through. It's written here, Franz Fanon argued that the first step for colonial people in finding a voice and an identity is to reclaim their own past. For centuries, the European colonizing power will have devalued the nation's past. Meaning by what? The first thing that in order to decolonize yourself is required that you need to understand your past. Because the colonization erodes your past. It makes your past appear zero. So you lose your identity. So this is why it is written here. Seeing its a pre-colonial era as a pre-civilized limbo or even as a historical void. Historical void means there was nothing existing. Means no identity, no culture which can be identified. When you have identity, when you can actually acquaint yourself with a particular culture or tendencies or trends, then you feel proud of the fact. But when someone comes and says, no, whatever you have is not that good and that does not make any sense, and what we are going to introduce, that is the beginning of your civilization. So then you start losing the confidence because you lose your identity. And this is what colonization has done. And this is what Fanon in The Wretched of the Earth, wretched means someone who is very poor. He has tried to showcase this, that in African countries, the France as a country, a colonizer was doing this, that they were making the Africans to forget their own history and come to believe the fact that this civilization has begun when the Europeans came there, when the France came there. Before this, there was nothing. It was historical void, in the words of French Fanon. Children, both black and white, will have taught to see history, culture, and progress as beginning with the arrival of Europeans. As I told you, it's the beginning of the culture with the Europeans, newcomers, new students. Children of that country will not see their past as the past which belongs to their own ancestors. Rather, it belongs to Europeans. Okay, from here onwards, we started being civilized. Before that, it was a historical void. So before that, their history is scrapped. So when someone's history and memory is scrapped, he becomes zero. If I say your memory is not working, it is scrapped. You forget everything that you have gathered into it. You become zero. It's a memory which makes you what you are because it is your identity, which comes through your memory. So your memory is scrapped. That's what Europeans did to Africans. France did to Africans, and this is what Franz Fanon is trying to say. Franz Fanon is talking about those facts which is very psychologically very strong, that how you can control someone. You have to erase the memory of that person's identity, erase the memory of the history that the person was undergoing, and make him feel that this is the beginning, and this beginning has been brought up by what? by Europeans. The civilization has begun with Europeans' arrival. Before that, there was no civilization. This is how they were trying to portray themselves. If the first step towards a post colonial perspective is to reclaim one's own past, so in order to become free, decolonized, you have to reclaim your own past. What you are talking about, this is the beginning of civilization, is not right. We already had a past that you never wanted us to remember. But now I'm going back to our past and trying to highlight those things which made us feel proud in the cultures that we had earlier. And this is what your past comes, your memories come, your belief in yourself comes. And this is what the step is required to decolonize yourself and to be free. This is what French Fanon is trying to say, and this is called cultural resistance. Cultural resistance. You are not the beginner. We already had a past that you eroded. Now, in order to decolonize, in order to free ourselves, we are going back to the past, and this is what Franz Fanon is saying. The first step is to go back to the past and reclaim your own past. And then the second is to begin to erode the colonialist ideology by which that past had been valued. So first step is to go back to your past, claim it. Okay, we had past, we had identity that you eroded. That is the first stage, and the second stage comes in the form of eroding the colonialist ideology, which says Europeans are better, Africans are not that good. This concept of Europeans being forward and Africans being backward, Europeans being progressive, and Africans being backward, and you can say those who does not know any culture and civilization. This idea has to go, because till the time this idea is dominating the mind of that country's people, they will never have the pride in their own culture, their own past. So this has to be eroded. First is to go back to your past, reclaim your past, and second is to erode those ideologies which were imposed upon you, which were making you feel inferior, which were making you feel that civilization began with the Europeans. So this ideology has to go. So this is how Franz Fanon is talking about. This is very deep psychological analysis of the human's brain, how their identities and how they are controlled, how they can be colonized. So Franz Fanon has written this in The Wretched of the Earth, that was published in the 1961, and the same we can find in The Black Skins, White Mask in 1967. Now going for the next text, that is Orientalism. Let's go for Orientalism, and here it is. Orientalism by Edward Said, that was published in 1978. And the same time, he is a writer of Culture Imperialism, that came in 1993. We need to understand one fact, that Orientalism itself, the name itself is talking about Orient and Occident. Orient stands for the Eastern countries, and Occident stands for the Western countries. So you are making something Orient. You are having the division. Edward Said, a very famous writer actually in Orientalism, talks about how this division has been created deliberately. The difference has been created. How Orient and Occident both have been separated on the different grounds. So if I read from here, it is written there, Orientalism is a 1978 book by Edward Said, in which he establishes the term Orientalism as a critical concept to describe the Western world's commonly contemptuous depiction and portray the Western world, that is the Orient. So deliberate, contemptuous depiction. Contemptuous means which can be contempted, which cannot be disliked. This kind of presentation is there. He is trying to say in the book Orientalism. Said puts Orient is Europe's contrasting image, idea, personality, experience. Contrasting. If you are good, so Orient's Eastern countries are bad. If you are progressive, so they are backward. If you are rational, so they are irrational. So everything that you are trying to showcase that you deserve these titles, these attributions. Against their attribution, in a Orients belong. They never accepted the facts that both the countries can be progressive. No, they always try to find out the opposite of what they try to depict themselves. If they depicted themselves as progressive, so they had to depict opposite of it, who is lazy. So this is how they have shown. If they are active, you are lazy. If they are progressive, you are backward. It's like always tried to find opposite. They never accepted the fact that these are the qualities which can be same for both the countries. No, they are good, so you are bad. They are progressive, so you are backward. They are active, so you are lazy. So this is how they were portraying everything opposite. They were portraying, and that was deliberately done in order to control the colonized countries. This is how they were controlling the mindset. If I read further, Orient was a place frozen in time with no progress or change. No progress or change. This is what Occidents, this is, Western countries always say. There was no progress. It is the progress that we brought in your countries. This is always they try to depict. They always try to progress. They always try to portray. With this freezing of the Orient, Europe was able to develop another theme: progress and development are features of European cultures. The Orient, he says, features in the Western mind as a sort of surrogate and even underground self. East is seen as a fascinating realm of exotic, mystical, seductive. It also trains to be seen as homogeneous. The people, they are being anonymous masses rather than individuals. Their actions determined by instinctive emotions than conscious choices or decisions. This is what Peter Barry says in his book. Somewhere, how they had tried to portray is this: that these Orients, Eastern people, are very much the people who are seductive, who are exotic, who are mystical. They're not rational, and they take their decisions on the basis of their terror, lust, fury. Whereas Western country people are making conscious decisions, rational decisions, and they have individuality. They say Orients, Eastern people are masses. They are a crowd. They don't have individual thought and thinking, which is not there in the case of Western countries, which is so that Western countries are having individuality, they are having rationality, they are making conscious choices. Opposite of it, they say all about these things about Orients. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Is very basic, that they had binaries. One thing is there, rationality was there for Westerns, irrationality was for Orients. Orient means Eastern countries, those countries who were colonized by these colonizers. So if you read both the books, I know if you can get a chance to read the original books, that will be the best thing to do. But if you cannot, at least you try to understand the concepts what these two writers have done. First one is The Nature of the Earth, that Franz Fanon, and the another one is Orientalism by Edward Said. They both have tried to highlight how there was a systematic, a planned way of controlling the mind. This is what Franz Fanon is trying to say, eroding the past and making them feel a historical void. And Fanon also gives a solution that first you have to go for claiming your past, and then you have to erode the ideological facts which were imposed upon you, which were making you feel inferior. So both the things were to be done. This is what Franz Fanon says: to be decolonized, to be free. And then we have Orientalism, where Orient stands for Eastern countries. Orientalism, that's Orient stands for Eastern countries. So how these Orients are created, how they treated other countries, how they explained, how they can say elaborated about them, was this: that these are the people who are emotional, these are the people who are irrational, these are the people who are seductive, they are exotic, they are homogeneous, they don't have individuality, they are taking their decisions on the basis of lust, terror, fury. Whereas these Westerns are rational, they are making conscious decisions, they are progressive. All these things were there. So I hope you understand both the books. Thank you very much for today. We will make next lecture soon. Thank you.